Hey friends, it's Laura with Laura's Handmade Haven. Welcome or welcome back. I'm so glad you joined me today. We're continuing our Let's Bake Quilt Sew Along, and this is kind of a little bonus video for you because if you've got your blocks finished through week 3, then you can actually assemble the first section of our quilt top center. So I'm going to be showing you how I'm going to be putting together all of these blocks up here on this top row today, and it's going to be amazing when we get that together. So without further ado, let's talk about how we're going to break these down and put them together and get to the sewing machine to get it all sewn up. All right, so when you look at these blocks, we have quite a few here, honestly. We have, what do we have here? We have 3, 6, 9, 10, we have 11 blocks to work with here. So what you want to do when you're looking at any section like this and on any quilt is you want to kind of see how things are working together. And if you look at this layout of blocks, you can see that this is really kind of a column format. So we have this cute little apron over here, and that is like the full width of our section. But now the rolling pin and the mixer, they need to be sewn together. All 3 of the pies need to be sewn together. And then we have our egg beater and our white measuring cup. And then we have our pink measuring cups and our 2 flowers. Now, if you don't have your stitched flowers done or the alternative modification that I'm doing, which is the applique flowers, then you won't be able to get this entire section together, but you will be able to get all the way till here. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to sew these 3 together, these 2 together, these 3, and these 2, and then we'll start building them all across. So let's grab the first 3, go to the sewing machine, and get them sewn. Now you will notice when I took them off, I stacked them in order. So this was on top, this was in the middle, and this was on the bottom. So that's exactly how I'm going to carry them to the sewing machine so I don't get confused and get my pieces together wrong. Okay, just in case this is the very first video you've ever seen with me, I'm going to go over what machine I'm using and the other things that go along with that. I'm using a Juki DX7. I love my Juki. I do have the extension table that came with my DX7, so that's not like an upgrade or anything like that. I am using Ceracore 100% silk finish cotton thread on a cone, and that is my top and my bottom thread. I'm using a 1/4-inch piecing foot. I'm using the Schmetz Microtech needle, and I have my stitch set on a straight stitch at 2.0. That's kind of like where I stay when I'm doing piecing. And so that's, that's where I have it set today. I think that is all I have to share about my machine setup. So let's just get these 3 little things stitched together. I did just cut my thread, and I will sew this last one on. Now I will tell you right here, I had a little wiggle. So I'm going to flip this over and go on the other side. Sometimes that happens with applique if you're going too fast or if you have your shapes a little too close to the edge. Just slow down through that area and sneak it through, and then you can keep on going. All right, so those 3 are sewn together, and they're just going to hang out right here for now. I'm going to go grab the egg beater and the measuring cup, and I'm also going to go ahead and grab my 3 pies. Now you can definitely use the sew along guide or the graphic that I have for you that lays out the blocks and how everything fits together if you are having some issues keeping your blocks straight. Another tip that I would share with you, something I like to do sometimes, I will take a picture of my design wall, and then I'll be able to reference that, and it will tell me exactly where all my blocks go. And that way, especially if you're putting together a quilt that has tons and tons of pieces and they're all pretty similar in nature, you can take a picture and then you can reference that just to make sure everything is going the way you wanted it to. This is our rolling pin and mixer. What I love about the Lori Holt quilts that I've done is that you trim up all your blocks to specific sizes. And so when you go to sew them together, especially with that interfacing and all the applique and everything on there, they really don't shift much on you, which is truly kind of nice. Everything just seems to go together so nicely. Okay, so I have all of my columns together for this first section. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start sewing some things together. There are multiple ways of doing this. What I typically like to do is just look at the amount of blocks that I have and then kind of divide and conquer, right? So instead of sewing, everything to one piece all the way across, I'll break it down into two sections and then sew those two sections together. So I'm going to sew these 3 together, and then I'm going to sew these 2 together, and then I'll sew those 2 sections to one another to complete my first portion of this quilt top. All right, the other thing that I would tell you is that anytime that I have a solid piece of fabric or a solid block like this one here, I like to put it on top because I know that's my good reference point of how big that section should be, because it's trimmed down to the exact size that you want. So, if you need to shrink or tug a little bit with those other 2 blocks underneath, then you can do that. Now with this little bitty rolling pin block, I will kind of finger press that seam down to the bigger block, just because it will give you a smoother look in your quilt top. The only thing is, when you do that, you've got to remember on the other side of that block which way you press that seam, and you can always reference it. But just keep that in mind. You don't want to have your seams twisted as you move across the blocks. So here's the first section. And now let's go ahead and start putting this second half together. We'll do that with our egg beater and our pies first. Now I will tell you, sometimes it just depends. Sometimes I just don't do it. Sometimes I forget. Sometimes who knows. But sometimes I will go ahead and do a little back stitch at the beginning and end of each of these rows when I'm sewing a section together like that. Just gives it a little more stability for when you're letting it hang for a while, or you're adding borders later. That way no little seams will come undone. You definitely don't have to do that, and I honestly don't do that all the time, but sometimes I do. All right, now with this one, I did press that seam up and this seam down. So I do want to remember that when I go to attach this final section, that this seam is going towards the top. Make sure it goes the same way, which means this little seam here will nest with it. Which means these 2 seams line up, right? These 2 joins. And this one is going up towards the top, so this one will be going down towards the bottom of that row. And actually, just to keep it simple in my mind, I'm going to make sure all of those seams go down. That also gives you a really good kind of a matching point. So if you aren't sure if everything's going to be lining up correctly, you can put your finger on this little seam right here, on that little junction of seams, and make sure everything is spaced correctly. Now, obviously, you are more than welcome to pin. I'm just not a pinner, and if you've watched my videos, my sew-alongs before, you know that I don't typically pin unless I get to borders or a really long segment of a quilt. So that is just what I do, but obviously you feel free to do whatever makes you happy and what gets you the best results. All right, so now I just have this half and this half to put together, and our first section of the Let's Bake quilt will be assembled. And again, I'm not going to pin them. I just have them lined up and matched up. And this, just watch your seams over here to see which way you have them going. So I know all of these should go down. That way they're not twisted. And just go slow around those little pie tops because they're kind of wanting to make me shift a little bit. All right, so I'm going to give this a good press and then we'll put it up on the wall. This just makes me so happy. Anytime I have blocks done that can complete one section of the quilt, it just makes me so happy. It makes me feel like, oh goodness, I'm getting somewhere. I'm making some serious progress and this is actually going to happen, right? So hopefully if you have your blocks done, if you're caught up, then you'll be able to get this first section together as well. If you haven't gotten your blocks done, then maybe this will inspire you to get those last little stitches in so you can get the first section of the Let's Bake quilt together. So next video, we're going to be working on the egg carton, the Let's Bake sign, the cocoa jar, and the milk bottle. So that's going to be super fun. I definitely have some modifications on those pieces for you. So stay tuned and check out that video. And I hope that you're enjoying the Let's Bake quilt sew along. I hope you're enjoying the quilt as much as I am. This is such a super cute design. I'm so excited about getting this quilt together. It's been on my list for a while, and I finally just decided to take the plunge. And what better way to stay motivated than to keep myself accountable by saying, hey, let's do this on the channel. And that way I got to make sure I get the videos done and together for you too. I do hope you picked up a few tips or tricks today with just assembling a section of the quilt. Until next time, find joy in all you do. Carve out some time for crafting and creating. And remember, it's always better when you make stuff up.